Hi, I am Maria Teresa Cometto. I am the Vice President of IACE, the Italian American Committee on Education. We, together with Italy, we are inviting students of the Italian program in the American schools in New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut to participate to this contest, Food in Focus. You can send up to 3 pictures of food which is clearly Italian. The judge is Francesco Tonelli, a renowned photographer specializing in food. The deadline is the end of May, and the best 3 pictures will be awarded with the prizes courteously given by Italy. So participate, have fun, and good luck.
Looks like I will have the privilege to review the pictures of food that you're going to be taking in the next weeks or months. And I'm also here to try to guide you, give you a little bit of the general guidelines to follow in order to be successful and to hopefully be one of the 3 top winners. And as I will guide you through this, I will also show you some of my work and try to show you some example of different way of taking picture of food, different ways of taking the framing, different way of styling the food, and try to tell you what could be more successful in this particular contest versus some other contest that we might be making in the future. Talking about what we're gonna do in the contest. We are taking picture that needs to be taken by a smartphone, so if you have a fancy camera, you're not supposed to use it. The other key is the food should be Italian inspired, so we are trying not for this contest, we are not going to award like a sushi or a sashimi, for example, or a cheeseburger for that matters. And the other important thing that I want to talk about is we had to put some criteria because the food, as you might see, can be subject to many interpretations. So in order to try to narrow down the criteria, we put one of the predominant to be the appetite appeal. And with that, I mean something like this. This is a cross-section of a Chinese cabbage. And in my opinion, I love this image. I find it interesting, I find it colorful, artistic, graphic, and under the right circumstances, I would be attracted to it and say, wow, that's a good candidate. But with the rules that we decided to establish for this course, I would pass it because, in my opinion, that doesn't make me hungry. I don't say, whoa, I can wait to bite into that. Actually, initially, I'm not even sure it's food. Make sense? This is another example. I like it. I think there is something interesting in spinning in this direction, but once again, there's no appetite appeal. So in this particular case, I don't recommend going in directions that are that creative. I'm going to start the slideshow by showing you when I first started taking pictures, which is less than 15 years ago. These were some of the dishes I was teaching my students. They were taken on a tablecloth. They were not really styled for the photography. And as you can see, they are not great pictures. You can see that they were taken under like whatever available light there was in the kitchen, which most of the time is neon light, is not really ideal. So no matter how much effort you put in styling the food, in making it look appetizing, the image is, it's not as good as it can be. That's another example of the same image. Instead of top down, I was with a slight angle, and you can see that the reflections are even more evident. So the next step for me was controlling the light. And that's the first suggestion that I would give to you as you're taking picture with your phone. As much as possible, sometimes you don't have a choice, but if you do have a choice, I would say walk away from under very reflective lights and try to move closer to a softer source, like it could be a window in most cases. And I think that it's going to help to soften, avoid weird reflections, and make overall the image more pleasant. Shooting outdoors, shooting in the park, shooting in a window, on a terrace, absolutely. I would just say sometimes less is more in terms of light. And although everything is subjective, I feel like when the light is too direct and too strong, too hard, too harsh, it can create problems with the highlights, and it can create very strong shadows and very overexposed areas. And the result, in my opinion, it's rarely appealing. So what I recommend is if you're shooting outdoors, try not to do it on a sunny day directly under the sun. Try to kind of soften the light a little bit, either under a tree with the leaves, or putting up like a white cloth, like a sheet, or go in the shadow. And actually for photography in general, even for landscape, from what I understand, sometimes cloudy days or rainy days are even better than the beautiful sunshine days that we all enjoy. Other thing that we can be thinking, I mean, as you will be putting food down for the picture and for the contest, you try so hard to make something look pretty that for some reason, at least for me, it becomes, oh, I want everything to be the same size. I want everything to be at the same distance, and trying to make something very symmetrical. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it works, you might like it, but it doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes casual and messy can work too. You could be doing elegant, like extremely refined, using very sophisticated ingredients and plating them in a very precise, difficult, clean way, and could work really well. Or you can open a can of tuna, being messy, natural, just garnish it maybe with some herbs or not. And I think still could be interesting. I could feel attracted to it. And actually, in this case, for me personally, makes me hungry because I love canned tuna. So I find that appetite appealing for me. Another example of rustic would be a roast beef sandwich like this. Is not laid perfectly. The sauce is smudging down, but it's okay. It could, as long as it still works. As opposed to elegant again, just like before. So, next thing is the focus. Other thing that it's a common, at least used to be common conception for me, like I thought that everything needed to be as sharp as possible. And so I was trying to make sure that from the beginning to the end in the plate, whatever I was shooting was in focus and sharp, which sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's beneficial, but not always. Sometimes if you're shooting something that where the focus it's only on one specific point and everything else fades a little bit, it can also be interesting. I shot this pizza in two different ways. This is all in focus, and this one is soft focus. Quite honestly with you, I don't have a favorite. Sometimes I feel like I'm liking the one in focus. Some other time I'm attracted to this one where the basil, the tomato goes off focus. Again, no big deal, just trying to tell you, either way works for me. To be honest with you, this is a bit more challenging to do with an iPhone, this particular picture, or with any phone, because this is achieved much easier in a camera where you can play with the aperture. This is a wide aperture. The one where everything is in focus, it's a narrow aperture. in a phone, you can achieve a similar effect by getting closer to your subject. The closer you get, and the less it can put everything in focus, and the more you pull back, and the more everything will go in focus. In terms of touching the screen, if you touch the screen and put the focus in the front, you maximize your chances that the focus is mostly here and what's in the back is going to get out of focus. If you want to get everything in focus, or vice versa, you touch it towards the end and maybe the front is out of focus. And as opposite as touching the screen in the center, where it's going to try to spread the focus at the most. But this is not the easiest thing to achieve with the phone. I have an iPhone. I edit the images in the iPhone. So I do use the Apple application. I just play with the blacks, with the contrast, with the highlight. And then when I put it on Instagram, with Instagram, there are some tweaking you can do. And I use a little bit of the sharpening there and a few of the other basic manual controls. Not every picture you see just came out like that in the camera. So to me, it's part of what photography is today. So yes, it's okay for you to use filter and to process the image in your phone. I have no problem with that. Other thing to consider, sometimes we plate our food, we pay so much attention to everything in the plate from the beginning to the end, all around the plate, and sometimes even to what's around the plate, the silverware, the tablecloth, the glasses. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't have to be. So you could depict the entire dish and it could work, or you could focus on a detail that, again, hopefully will make you hungry and appetite appeal. Shooting the entire dish, the entire table and preparation, or shooting just the corner of the pizza, pulling and melting, that could both work. Same thing on a dish. This was a beautiful dish in a restaurant, was a pea soup. And the old dish, I shot it, was nice, beautiful. But in a way, my favorite shot is this one, where I don't even see the soup. I just see part of the vessel where it's plated and the part of the beautiful garnish that the chef had made. We don't have to show the whole plate, and we don't have to necessarily show it in the center. Many of my dishes are centered, so it's not wrong to do it, I think. I do it, I think it's okay. But others are not, and I also think it's okay. It can be okay artistically, just for the picture as it is, but it can also be helpful if you want to write something on the side, like in my case. So other thing is, are we shooting the food before anybody touches it, which can work, most people do, or are we shooting it when we are halfway through? Is one better than the other? Maybe for you, all of this is subjective. What I like might be different than what you like, and that's what makes this art, and that's what makes it beautiful. If your artistic sense tells you that it would be more artistic and more appealing to the appetite if you show me a sequence and therefore put 9 images or 6 or 4, and that becomes your image, I'm okay to accept that. If you're shooting, let's say you show me a full plate of spaghetti, and then it's eaten a third, and then half, and then 2/3, and then so forth, and then the empty plate, maybe that could work. I don't have a problem with that, but it's the same dish, and that's going to be your call. I would accept both. So my suggestion to you is follow your art. Like, if to you it's appetizing when it's half eaten, shoot it that way, and there's a good chance I like it as much or better than if you show me the perfect croissant before you touch it. And so it's another example where don't worry if it breaks. If you're cooking an egg and the yolk breaks up, might be a good thing. Happy errors, happy mistakes are a good thing to happen sometimes. Another thing is sometimes you make things super simple and it could work. Sometimes you might decide that for your contest you're going to create something, really elaborated and complicated, like it could be a lasagna or something you spend the entire day, and it might pay off. It might be a great image. This is not a recipe contest, so if you're making a perfect carbonara, it doesn't have more chances to win than beautifully steamed peas with olive oil. It's not about the recipe. It's about the photo itself and the appetite appeal. But it doesn't have to be an Italian recipe contest. Even if it's raw meat or raw vegetables with olive oil, or cooked meat and cooked vegetable, as long as it doesn't have a strong ethnic profile, I think it's good. But I would like to know what it is. So I think it would be a good idea to hashtag pasta alla carbonara or spaghetti alla chitarra alla carbonara, or the more detailed you are to let me know what I'm seeing, the better. And if it's not a dish, still explain what it is. You would say peas, steamed green beans, roasted green beans, or whatever you're shooting. I'd love to know. And so this is a little bit a summary of what I'm trying to leave you with, and a suggestion and recommendation. I think one of the number one things you want to keep in mind is the quality of the subject. In my opinion, you can take the most artistic, beautifully lit, beautifully framed picture, but if the food is not a good quality subject, I don't think I'm going to pick it as a winner. Once again, because the criteria in this case is appetite appeal. So quality, yummy, it's number one thing. But not the only one. If it's very yummy, but the picture is not interesting, or it's not well lit, or if it's not well artistically framed, also, just the appetite appeal by itself is not the only criteria. Make sense? Composition and framing, important too. So think about it. You don't have to show the whole plate. You can show me a detail that you find particularly graphic, particularly appealing, particularly beautiful. You could have other things around that makes the entire frame look more geometrical or more artistic. The background, beside white and black, there are rustic woods, wood, slate, a sea of vegetables, anything. But it's important, so it can be part of your creativity if the background is pretty much the same. The background could be the food itself. You don't have to see I don't have to see the plate. I don't have to see anything else. Just the food could work too. Adjusted the exposure. We already talked about it. You already know. Control the light source. We also talk about it. I think that's very, very important for a quality image. Steady hand. I mean, that's another thing, especially if you're shooting in a like moody situation, which could also be cool. That's another way of controlling the light source. Could be a table lamp, for example, could give a very beautiful atmosphere. But the less strong the light is, and the longer the shutter speed is going to be, and the more prone to camera shake. So there are things that you can use, by the way, that will hold your iPhone or whatever phone you have steady, like a tripod or a clamp. I would recommend using it if you're shooting in low, especially if you're shooting in low light. And that's it, I guess. I gotta